We have a quorum. Let's call this meeting to order. The first item is meeting with the administration. We need to consider whether to invite the public to write in. Members, please consider whether we should invite public views on the amendment bill. If so, we can invite submissions in writing. Any objection? Right, the Secretariat will publish a notice on the LegCo's website to invite public submissions. And as per our practice, the Secretariat will also invite and inform the 18 district councils to write in. All the submissions will be forwarded to the administration for consolidated response. I will now invite the administration to introduce the bill to us, and we will start a policy discussion on the bill. I'll give the floor to Mr. Christen, Secretary for Labour and Welfare, to walk us through the bill. Members, if you want to speak, please press the request to speak button. Over to you, Secretary. Chairman, members, it's nice to see you all in August, in the middle of summer break. The government has been enhancing training for the local workforce with a view to enhancing competitiveness and unleashing potential in the local workforce. The Employees Retraining Board was set up in 1990s. All along, the main focus has been on serving the grassroots and those who have lost their jobs. But over the years, there have been demographic changes and also changes in the industrial structure. In fact, specialized education has been enhanced over the years, and now there is a change in demand for the various skills, and there is a need to upgrade the skills of different sectors and different levels on a continuous basis to enhance competitiveness. And this is the reason why in the Policy Address 2023, the government proposed a comprehensive review of the ERB on its service scope, training strategies, and mode of operation. Following that, the recommendations in the report were submitted to the government, and it is agreed that the ERB's service targets should be repositioned and expanded to cover the entire workforce, and there should be a shift from occupation-based to skill-based training of the workforce to satisfy the manpower needs for local economic development. And starting from 2025, the ERB implemented a series of short-term reform measures to enhance services, including expanding the service targets to entire workforce aged 15 or above, irrespective of their qualifications, as well as drawing up career planning and employment support strategies. Now, in fact, the majority of these proposals will be fully implemented upon passage of the Employees Retraining Amendment Bill 2026. Upon passage of the bill, the Employees Retraining Board will be renamed Upskill Hong Kong. There will also be expansion of the statutory functions and powers. There will be more flexibility for the ERB to decide on different aspects, including financial matters. This is the first meeting of the Bills Committee. I'd like to highlight a number of points. First, about the repositioning of the ERB. In fact, there is no change in the position of the ERB. Now, it is in fact not a training body. As the name suggests, this is a board that focuses on appointing training bodies to provide courses. In other words, the Upskill Hong Kong in the future will remain a central authority in monitoring the training initiatives. Now, in fact, if we're able to expand our service scope, then in a symbiotic relationship, there will also be greater demand for training institutions, and so there is no overlapping or change in each other's roles. This is a central platform, and the Upskill Hong Kong will take the leading role in conducting research and identifying the various skills needed by the market so as to guide the training bodies to organized courses and provide corresponding training and career services to the entire population to cope with the ever-changing workforce demands and ensure Hong Kong's competitiveness. The second point I wish to highlight is that Upskill Hong Kong will continue to fulfill its mission in serving the local grassroots workforce. This is very important. This is also the intention of establishing the ERB in the first place, and in the future, this goal will be adhered to. We will continue to serve the local grassroots workforce. And priority will be given to Hong Kong permanent residents as well as one-way permit holders who will be settling in Hong Kong for good. So these are the primary service targets. Let me repeat. The local workforce comprising Hong Kong permanent residents as well as one-way permit holders will remain the primary service target. But then after expansion of service scope, the Upskill Hong Kong may also perform other functions so as to provide services to groups other than the primary service target. The policy remains clear. In fact, we're going to sign a memorandum of administrative arrangements which will set out these details. Now, for service targets, we go by a number of principles. There should be a demand from the market, and no subsidies or allowances will be given. The course fees will be charged at the cost recovery level or above that level. So that's the second point. The third point is that we want to provide flexibility to upskill Hong Kong and give them more tools in the decision-making process. We hope that barriers and restrictions can be removed. As for the new powers and functions, the Upskill Hong Kong will decide on these matters based on the actual circumstances and the prevailing market condition at the time. But then we want to make amendments to the law after it's been in place for 30 years. We just want to provide flexibility for the Upskill Hong Kong to exercise its power. Let me give you one example. Upon passage of the bill, Upskill Hong Kong may provide service outside of Hong Kong. This is not possible at the moment, but in the future, Upskill Hong Kong may provide training to participants outside of Hong Kong, such as those in the Greater Bay Area. Now, there are emerging industries such as new industry and new energy vehicles, low altitude economy, and that these resources can be found in the Greater Bay Area, and if it's optimally used, it can help train our local workforce as well. Apart from dishing out retraining allowances to the unemployed who are eligible for the allowances, under the amendment bill, Upskill Hong Kong will be able to provide financial incentives in a diversified manner, such as allowances, reimbursements, subsidies, so on and so forth, so as to promote enhancement of the local workforce's productivity. In the past 3 years, we have conducted consultation. We've garnered support from different sectors. It is a common wish for this central platform to be optimally used so as to provide training to the local workforce, and that Professor Wong Yit Long, the chair, will give you more details about the work of Upskill Hong Kong. I'd like to thank Chairman and members once again for your support. Some members may not be members of this Bills Committee, and we thank them for all the views received. We do hope that upon passage of the bill, Upskill Hong Kong will be able to complete the reform comprehensively. Right, thank you. Secretary, I'll read out the names of members who would like to ask questions. Mr. Luthea Lam, Dennis Leung, Tommy Jong, Alvin Lee, Chen Xiu Hong, Ken Lee, Lam Chen Sing, Chen Xiu Hong, Chan Pui Kong, Alex Fan, Moon Kit, Augustine Wong, and Lam Wai Kong. Each member will have 4 minutes, including questions and answers. Who will kick off, please? Sure. Chairman of the Employees Retraining Board, Professor Simon Wong. Thank you. Chairman, first of all, I'd like to thank the administration and the Legislative Council for their continuous support of the work of the ERB, as well as their concerns and views on the reform of the ERB. As mentioned by the Secretary, Hong Kong is now undergoing an economic transformation with rapid development of technologies. At this critical point, there is new demand for the workforce in coping with digitalization and use of AI as well as automation. In light of these changes, we must also undergo reform to meet the public demand. And that is why we don't just rename the ERB. We are going to launch a series of measures to change the functions and powers, and we will go by the existing goals, and that is to promote lifelong learning while continuing to support the local workforce. Now we'll continue to serve the primary service target, but we'll also draw up a more comprehensive framework with learning pathways so that different members of the public will continue to enhance their skills and competitiveness based on their different needs and abilities so that they can grasp opportunities. Currently, the ERB is proceeding with the reform in a progressive manner. I'm asked to give a report, so here it is. We will build a skill-based framework, and this will be the important cornerstone and strategy of Upskill Hong Kong. Since this year, we have begun to develop new courses on the basis of the skill-based training framework. We also review existing courses. In the first phase, we're going to draw up sector-based framework for the sectors in which there are more basic skilled jobs, and we will also develop career development path for the trainees. We also consider these necessary skills and knowledge required for Hong Kong to be developed into 8 centers and 9 key industries development. Now, in light of our country's demand and the local demand, we will actively tap and review the gaps that require further training, such as innovation technology, artificial intelligence, ESG, etc. In fact, we've developed over 100 new courses. Over half of them are courses at a higher level with a view to providing learning pathways for different walks of life. As for the micro-credentials program, we are in the process of consolidating these programs. We will also launch a new consolidated certificate program so that with micro-credits, trainees or candidates will be able to accumulate at their own pace the relevant micro credentials in order to get a certificate. The next stage is to strengthen our support for skill-based training. Now we are in the process of preparing for the launch of a new department or unit. Now this new department will conduct market research through data analysis to gauge the development trends of various industries and the demand for future skills. We're also consulting the industrial network, and will strengthen partnership with industry associations, professional bodies. In fact, in the past few months, we have been proactive in reaching out to the leading companies in various industries, such as IT firms and drone companies and autonomous driving companies, so as to provide training courses in order to meet the demand. We'll also provide tailor-made courses so as to give candidates hands-on experience and to make the courses more practical and useful. The relevant training bodies all support the reform. they hope to strengthen collaboration upon passage of the bill, as mentioned by the Secretary. We'll also seek to enhance training in the neighboring cities in the Greater Bay Area. The third part relates to AI training. The ERB has developed over 60 courses related to AI. Since the beginning of last year, we have expanded the service scope, and that is we also provide training to those with sub-degree level or below, and we already have 10,000 people applying to be enrolled in these AI-related courses. But we are not going to compete with other market participants proactively. Instead, we're going to maintain close liaison with the training bodies so as to avoid overlapping of resources. We're also actively preparing for the launch of a brand new AI online training course so that candidates at different levels will be able to learn AI in a flexible manner. The fourth point is to enhance our brand, and we are optimizing the placement services. There will be a new consolidated training service center to provide one-stop service. We'll also enhance our consultancy service so that members of the public with different backgrounds and needs can receive tailor-made learning pathway recommendations. Now, we expect to commence operation in the first half of next year, and if the bill is passed, since the ERB will be renamed and upgraded to Upskill Hong Kong, and we will be rebranding our organization. We will, for example, design a new logo. We'll also mount a new round of publicity so as to strengthen publicity and explain to the public the new image of our organization as well as the new courses available. In the medium to long term, we will continue to take forward the reform measures such as a skill-based training framework and the learning pathway development. They're being implemented step by step. Chairman, I understand that the public are concerned about the positioning and development of the ERB, including our support for the special groups, teenagers, as well as future skills needed by the local workforce, comprising different backgrounds and different career stages. We emphasize that we attach great importance to the views of the committee and all sectors of the community. We do keep an open mind when we listen carefully to all the views. In the process, we will fully consider all the views received so as to optimize the skill-based training plans and also employment or career services so that Upskill Hong Kong will continue to better serve the local workforce. We hope that our organization will not remain just a training organization or subsidized organization. We want to be able to promote continuous learning and learning for all in collaboration with all the training bodies as partners. Now, for the workforce with different backgrounds, education, attainment, and skills level, it is hoped that they will be able to find their own learning pathways, and will also make sure that grassroots workers will receive adequate support. I believe with the support of the government, the Legislative Council, and the industry, and the public, we will be able to build this important learning platform so as to grasp the opportunities brought about by IT development and the use of AI, etc., so as to lay a good foundation for the population.
Thank you, Professor. I'll give each member 4 minutes, including questions and answers. If need be, members could press the button to speak for the second round. Mr. Lothair Lam, please. Thank you, Chairman. With the development in technology and various industry, there's a change in demand for manpower. Like the Secretary said, there are more new energy vehicles nowadays, and therefore there is greater demand for maintenance personnel. Therefore, I support the reform of the training framework. We need to help employees upskill themselves, and I have three concerns. In future, Upskill Hong Kong will enhance their research capabilities to understand the trends and needs so that they can formulate a suitable framework. In this regard, I want to know if the government can share with us the details. For example, how will you develop such a framework? Will you break it down into different work types so that employees from different industries can understand the skills they need as well as the prospective progression pathway? Second, understand that the functions of Upskill Hong Kong will be expanded and therefore more resources will be required. There is a remaining balance of $10 billion in the Employees Retraining Fund. Every year, the ERB earns about $500 to $600 million. I understand that the government has no plans to expand the levy framework. However, I hope that you will take into consideration of employers' situation as you consider whether to increase the levy. Also, I have concerns about the quality of courses. Understand that the ERB would conduct site visits to see if the courses provided by training bodies meet the requirements. Also, there is annual auditing held by training bodies and there are surprise inspections mounted by the ERB. I understand that the future Upskill Hong Kong will allow training bodies to provide courses outside of Hong Kong. And how will you review these courses? And will there be manpower to take care of this? Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. I thank Mr. Lam as well. In relation to the question about enhancing research capabilities, I'll see if the ERB can supplement later. I'll respond to the second and third questions first. In future, Upskill Hong Kong will be able to impose more than one types of levies on employers. However, we do not have any plans to develop new levies. However, we do not rule out such options if in future we think that there is a need to impose new levies. We won't have to amend the legislations further. But of course, if need be, we will go through the process. Second, I believe that Upskill Hong Kong will come up with a set of measures to ensure the quality of courses to be provided. For example, in terms of social welfare, we currently have a Guangdong scheme in place. We have 29 care homes on our list, and we are able to guarantee the quality of the service providers, despite the fact that they are not regulated by Hong Kong laws. In future, if courses are to be provided, for example, in Guangdong, we will keep in close communication with the relevant authorities in Guangdong so as to make sure that they meet the relevant requirements. So we will be able to monitor the quality, but in terms of how it will be implemented, it will depend on Upskill Hong Kong. In relation to enhancing research capabilities, we have increased manpower. Like the Secretary as well as Professor Wong said, in future, our priority is to develop a skill-based framework. We hope to develop a progression pathway for each industry, and we hope to introduce micro-credential courses. Therefore, we need to be visionary and forward-looking. We have to monitor what kind of emerging skills we see in Hong Kong as well as in neighboring places. We need to gauge what kind of talents we need, and therefore we need sufficient manpower to conduct researches. Different government departments as well as public organizations and schools have been conducting their own researches. We hope to coordinate with these bodies and organizations and see whether we can conduct researches together These researches will help us identify skills gaps as well as formulate a skill-based framework. Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I declare that my political party, FTU, has been hosting ERB courses. I have 3 questions. Just now, the Secretary made a remark and I completely agree with him. The work of Upskill Hong Kong will benefit employers in Hong Kong. I noticed that in the mainland, the Information Department as well as the Human Resources Department of the mainland government have been providing mainland residents with AI training. And these training are offered for free and they are accredited by mainland authorities. In Hong Kong, the ERB will be upgraded to Upskill Hong Kong. As mentioned, there will be online courses to upskill employees. However, will these courses enhance the remuneration package of employees? I'm concerned about that. Under qualifications framework, employees can complete certain courses and obtain a level 3 QF recognition. However, these employees do not actually get a higher pay after completing these courses. So how will these future courses actually benefit employees? Second, resources are limited. How can we make good use of resources to benefit employees who would like to upskill themselves? In the past, there were trainees who kept signing up for different courses, and even after completing these courses, they did not necessarily engage in employment in the relevant industries. In future, how can we ensure a higher placement rate for trainees? Third, I am concerned about the quality of courses provided by local training bodies. It could be because of a problem of the training body side, but it could also be because of the trainers. In future, how will you increase monitoring of training bodies as well as the courses they provide to ensure quality so that trainees could actually obtain skills they need and that these courses can actually ensure improvement of our economy as well as talent development? Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. I thank Mr. Dennis Leung. Mr. Leung was talking about the relationship between employees' pay as well as QF courses. In the private sector, your pay is not necessarily linked to your work experience. But of course, if you manage to upskill yourselves, you will have a higher value in the market. In future, of course, we hope to offer courses that meet market demands. For those who have completed the courses, they would hopefully at least be able to keep their job, and ideally they would be able to earn more money. Well, resources are never enough. I understand that why some trainees, they keep signing up for ERB courses. And we do not let everyone who want to sign up for courses to attend these courses because the executive director has been the gatekeeper. Same for quality. All along, the ERB has been monitoring the quality, and in future, Upskill Hong Kong will continue to work hard on this regard. Anything to add? Mr. Tommy Chong. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that we should upgrade ERB as Upskill Hong Kong and that we should amend the Employees Retraining Ordinance. I have questions about the general policy as well as the bill. First, on expanding service targets, I understand that Upskill Hong Kong would like to cover more service targets in the future, and therefore it is suggested that we should repeal the definition of eligible employees in the bill. I think we need to expand training in order to unleash the local workforce as well as productivity. If we are to cover foreign domestic helpers and imported labor in terms of our training, well, I have concerns. There are talents admitted through the various talent admission schemes, and I agree that we should cover these incoming talents. I think we should draw the line in terms of considering whether the trainee is a permanent resident, instead of covering all short-term imported labor. I hope the administration can consider whether repealing the definition of eligible employees in this regard. Second question is about streamlining the process to appoint training bodies. I understand that you will amend Schedule 2 to streamline the process. I understand this can help the ERB attract more training bodies to expand service targets. Currently, we adhere to the negative vetting procedure, and I believe that it already gives us enough flexibility. So I hope the administration can reconsider whether to amend Schedule 2. And thirdly, I understand that you are considering providing courses in the Greater Bay Area. I think the Legislative Council will have to act as the gatekeeper here. We have to consider what kind of training bodies are qualified to provide courses in the GBA. Again, I hope that the administration would tread carefully. We hope to employees. However, we have to ensure quality as well. We should focus on the skills that are needed in the future. We don't need 100 or even 1,000 training bodies in Hong Kong.
Secretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zhong, for the two questions. For the first one, as I said in my opening remarks, the primary service target will remain unchanged, and that is Hong Kong permanent resident and local workers, especially grassroots workers. But then with the amendments in the ordinance, we want to expand the service targets. If we're able to recover costs under the user pay principle, then at least we may consider training foreign domestic helpers as well. We have 370,000 foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong. They take care of the young and old. And it's common wish for foreign domestic helper to hone their skills as well. But at the moment, because of the current framework, there is little room for us to provide training to them. In fact, there are training courses available in the market, but in the future, without extra commitment or resources from the government, we may be able to provide training to them. They are not going to have permanent residency in Hong Kong, but they serve permanent residents here. So there is a big gap here. Without the help of foreign domestic helpers, our elderly, and a lot more elderly in Hong Kong, will have to live in a home. So I just want to share with you that this is something that could happen and an issue that we should handle. And about amendments to Schedule 2, now if we allow a fast-track approach to amending Schedule 2 30 years ago, then things would have been better. Let me guarantee that they are not going to arbitrarily make amendments to the schedule. Of course, everything will be done under the sun and will be subject to electoral scrutiny. And in fact, this will also be picked up by various panels in the Council, according to our experience over the years. If we're able to allow more flexibility here, that is in relation to changes in the list of training bodies, then it will greatly help our work, because there is a limit as to how many items of subsidiary legislation we can table into the Council in a year by negative vetting. So it's a balancing exercise, and we consider the pros and cons. We want to be able to strike a better balance. Right. The third question relates to non-local training bodies and the quality. Rest assured, Chairman, at least in the near future, we are considering only mostly training bodies in Guangdong Province. And if we take it forward, we'll definitely discuss the matter with the relevant government authorities in Guangdong. We will make sure that only the best training bodies could become our training partners. Dr. Elvin Lee. The Secretary mentioned that it is a common aspiration for Upskill Hong Kong to be set up for the long-term development of Hong Kong. So I think the amendment bill will grant greater powers and statutory functions to the ERB, and with greater responsibilities as well. As for the composition, I understand that the membership will be expanded from 17 to 25 in total. Now, my next question is regarding resource allocation. Will this new organization be solely responsible? So how will the resource allocation be optimized in order to achieve what you mentioned in terms of according priorities and allocation of resources? As I understand, these will be undertaken by Upskill Hong Kong. What about the fulfillment of roles and functions? The other question is this. In fact, a new department will be set up to conduct research, and some members ask questions about the research to be conducted. Now, I understand that, again, Upskill Hong Kong will be collaborating with some partners. This organization will be responsible for allocation of resources and collaborating with institutions to conduct research. So I want to make sure there is good coordination. There are 9 core industries in Hong Kong with different features. In some industries there may be leaders, in some others there may not. The third question is about training bodies outside Hong Kong. And I'm referring to the background brief prepared by the Electoral Secretariat. So for training bodies outside Hong Kong, this expression doesn't include those in the Greater Bay Area, is that right? And about specialized equipment and teaching resources, I'd like to know more about them. Does it mean that in the future this will no longer apply, or is it that if we're able to collaborate with international training bodies with quality resources, then we will go ahead? So these are the questions I'd like to ask. I'll give the floor to the to my colleague to take these questions. About the new composition, there will be additional members in Upskill Hong Kong. In the past, we did not have this category. Now we add a new category, and that is to appoint a member with suitable expertise and knowledge, professional knowledge. This is to be appointed by the chief executive. Apart from official representatives and professionals representing different sectors, for example, in the future, there may be specialists in new energy or scholars well suited for research and training. We'd like to invite them to become members of Upskill Hong Kong as well to help with decision making. Let me take the third question first. By training bodies outside Hong Kong, it includes not only those in the Greater Bay Area. There are other mainland training bodies. For example, some training bodies in Hangzhou are good at robotics. But then Upskill Hong Kong will need to consider a number of factors, such as distance with these training bodies. We're only removing obstacles and allowing flexibility for Upskill Hong Kong to be able to consider these matters in the future. It will be left to the decision of Upskill Hong Kong in the future. About this research department, who would like to take this question, please? Executive Director. As mentioned just now, for the research department, we want to be able to gauge the latest manpower demands in the new era, as well as demand for skills. We focus on small and medium-sized enterprises because most employees work in SMEs. So in future, we will add to the network representatives of not only leading companies, but also representatives of SMEs and chambers of commerce, so as to consider the future skills needed. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Let's take a look at the current situation and the history of ERB. I think the concept of training only the unemployed is out of date. If you take a look at the practices around the world, such as Singapore, the training authority now provides training and support for the entire population in order to enhance the skills. So that's the background of this amendment bill. The ERB will be upgraded to Upskill Hong Kong with a new positioning from occupation-based to skill-based training, especially when it comes to the development of AI and capacity building. The amendment bill will also expand the statutory powers and functions of ERB to enhance operational efficiency. So I support the bill in principle. Mr. Tommy Chung just now asked a number of important questions, and in fact these are the questions that I wanted to ask. So let me explain my position. Upskill Hong Kong will serve primarily Hong Kong permanent residents. Now, Secretary, if the idea is to expand the scope further to serve those who serve Hong Kong permanent residents, then I understand that this is out of a goodwill, but then this could be dangerous because, Secretary, you may have to come back and explain to the public that for groups serving Hong Kong permanent residents, they should be included as well after passage of the bill. So you have a lot of explanation to do. So would you rather delete some of the provisions across the board so as to avoid future disputes? For example, there could be a dispute arising from this group, foreign domestic helpers, and clearly they do not enjoy permanent residency here. And like the Secretary explained, we want foreign domestic helpers to be better equipped with skills to take care of the disabled, children, and the elderly. Now, there is, of course, a demand, but then I don't think the service should be provided by Upskill Hong Kong. So, Secretary, you should consider that. The other point is this. By circumventing the Legislative Council, Upskill Hong Kong can in the future appoint training bodies. Again, I subscribe to the view of Mr. Tommy Jong. Secretary explained that it's a very difficult job to submit a subsidiary legislation for negative vetting because it happens only once or twice a year. But this is not good reason for the administration to circumvent the scrutiny of LegCo and hence the public. So I'd like to know more from you, Secretary, about your past experience. How long does it take for the training bodies to be added or deleted from the list according to your past experience? Is it really such a difficult job, such that you need to go by other alternatives such as making an announcement on the website, etc.? Tell us the criteria for addition or deletion of training bodies.
Secretary, I thank Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Mr. Chen elaborated on Mr. Tommy Chong's questions, and I think it's great that we have an opportunity to respond to these questions in detail. And I think the Bills Committee is the right occasion for us to have a detailed discussion on this. So please allow me to explain further. During the consultation, some people raised the same comment. However, there are also training bodies that told us a different opinion. They suggested that we charge trainees on a user pay principle. We're going to develop a new framework, and we see that there are more elderly people that require the care of foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong, and we have limited care homes or subsidized care homes in Hong Kong. All the places are filled very quickly. So we have been thinking of different ways to address the issue. We receive different views and we propose this reform in the bill. For courses targeting permanent residents in Hong Kong, we hope to grant them training allowance for foreign domestic helpers. If they are to sign up for our courses, we will not provide any retraining allowance to them. They will be charged on a user pays principle or user pay basis. This is because we want to make good use of taxpayers' money, and we want to focus the resources on our permanent residents. For foreign domestic helpers, they will have to pay for the courses. If members are concerned about this, we can spell it out explicitly in the bill, stating that they will be charged on a cost recovery basis. Well, members have raised their comments today, and I believe that we can have a further discussion on this in future. The second question is about Schedule 2. By proposing to amend Schedule 2, we do not mean to circumvent the Legislative Council. If members require more information, we could provide it later. We expect that there will be a lot of changes to the list of training bodies. If we can give more power to upskill Hong Kong, it will make things more efficient. We are proposing to set up a new research division. This is because we need more manpower. In the past, we have been rolling out courses based on new market demands. However, AI technologies have been developing rapidly. Same for the market. There are many SMEs in Hong Kong, but we cannot rely on them to adapt to the changes themselves. So we propose to set up a research division which will be visionary and forward-looking. We want to make reasonable forecasts and predictions. And once we identify the skills needed, we will roll out the relevant courses. This is our thought now. That being said, we expect training bodies to have to adapt very quickly in the future. And so we want Upskill Hong Kong to have the power to deal with this by means of administrative procedures. Well, I appreciate members for raising their comments, and perhaps we could look into this in a more detailed manner. Chairman, will we be allowed to speak for the second round? Perhaps I will raise my follow-up questions and further views in the second round. Mr. Lam Chun-sing, I declare that I belong to an organization that works as a training body under the ERB. I agree that we need a reform, and some members have talked about the financial issues. Currently, the ERB relies on the ERF, which has a remaining balance of $13 billion, and every year it loses about $1 billion. So in 10 years' time, the fund will be depleted. So at times when the economy is not doing well, the government has no money to inject into the fund. However, it is during economic downturns that grassroots workers need the support. For example, the government rolled out the scheme, and it helped grassroots workers a lot. So while ERB rolls out courses, it is under the management of the LWB, not the Education Bureau. In the past, it offered support and financial assistance to those who are unemployed. For those who are in their 50s and they do not have high educational attainment, how do you expect them to learn AI and find a new job? It will be very difficult for them. In the long run, I want to know how the government will address the issue in terms of offering employment support to the grassroots. Second, I'd like to ask about the employee training levy. I know that a new tier will be added. Just now, the administration said it does not have any new thoughts in terms of expanding or imposing new levies. Well, but if you are to amend the relevant provisions, I believe that you have some ideas of reforming the framework. For example, will you impose different levies on different kinds of employers? For example, for those who hire imported labor, they'll have to pay a higher levy, and for those that suffer a greater losses in terms of their business, they will pay a different levy. Secretary. First, on the long-term commitment of the government, members are all very concerned about the financial position of the ERB as well as the future upscale Hong Kong. I think upscale Hong Kong will be in a sound financial position. This is because in the past, the government injected $15 billion into the ERF when the government was in a better fiscal position. So it is expected that in the medium to long run, upscale Hong Kong will not face any financial problem. The government has come up with very clear policies in upgrading the ERB, and therefore, we will allocate resources to upscale Hong Kong. However, at this moment, it's hard for the government to inject more money into the fund. However, please rest assured that in the coming few years, upscale Hong Kong will have enough money to sustain its operation. But we will keep in view its financial standing. Second, we will allow upscale Hong Kong to impose new levies on employers. However, this is just to allow greater flexibility. We currently do not have any plans to impose a new tier of levy. We do not know what will happen in 10 or 20 years' time, and if there are major changes, we might need more than one tier of levy. And if that's the case, upscale Hong Kong will have the power to do so. However, I can tell you very clearly that at this point, we do not have any plans to impose new levies. But we do not rule out the option that we might impose new levies where necessary in the future. So we want to allow that flexibility. We will make sure that the levies to be charged will be fair to both employers and employees, and we will only impose new levies where necessary. Mr. Lam Chun-sing, anything to add? Not really. I think the administration has already made it very clear. In the long run, the government will be responsible for the financial commitment. What I want to say is that we are focusing on a skill-based framework here. However, there are grassroots workers who face unemployment, and I hope that for those who are unemployed, they will get the support from the government. I hope there will be more support for grassroots workers. Mr. Chow Siu-chung, I declare that the association I belong to is a training body of the ERB. The ERB was established in the 1990s. Back then, many manufacturing industries had to transform themselves, and therefore we had to help employees upskill themselves. Over the past 30 years, the government and the ERB has done a lot to help facilitate that transformation. They have contributed a lot. Just now, Professor Simon Wong said Hong Kong is currently facing another wave of transformation. I believe that citizens in Hong Kong will face a major change. Therefore, I support the reform direction. I hope that after upgrading, upscale Hong Kong will more efficiently help grassroots workers transform themselves. Secretary and Chairman have mentioned in various occasions that upscale Hong Kong will shift from an occupation-based to skill-based training. However, the mission of Upskill Hong Kong will remain unchanged. Ultimately, we want to enhance the competitiveness of employees in Hong Kong. So I noticed that some provisions will be deleted from the original ordinance. For example, the administration will identify skills gaps as well as industries that require new skills so as to help grassroots workers to secure a job. I hope that the relevant wording will be kept in the bill so as to reflect the objective of Upskill Hong Kong, which is to serve local employees. Also, Mr. Tommy Chong and Mr. Chen Xiu-hong mentioned that the definition of eligible employees will be amended. I have the same concern. I am worried that imported labor or foreign domestic helpers would compete for resources with local employees. Will they take up a lot of our resources? To avoid this situation, I think that they will be charged on an above cost recovery basis. However, I don't see that this is spelled out very clearly in the bill. We have to make sure that we have to charge at an above cost recovery level. How will the administration make sure that Upskill Hong Kong will recover or will charge imported labor at an above cost level? Also, as the legal advisor said, will the memorandum of administrative arrangement be made public? Also, the administration mentioned it will work with training bodies outside of Hong Kong, for example, those in the Greater Bay Area. Will Upskill Hong Kong or the government appoint organizations outside Hong Kong as training bodies of Upskill Hong Kong? And if you are doing that, how will you ensure quality?
Chairman, I'll give the floor to the PS to answer these very detailed questions. First, about the functions. The functions are provided in Clause 4 of the amendment bill. Now, the member is concerned about this. For example, at the moment, we focus on helping industries with a higher unemployment rate. And the member's question was whether we'll be able to continue to do so. Upon the amendment, the answer is in the affirmative. And as we have said a number of times, supporting the grassroots workers is and will remain a very important mission of Upskill Hong Kong. About groups that are not our service targets at the moment, and if we provide service to them, we will be able to charge at a level above the cost recovery level. And the question was that this is not clearly spelled out in the law. But rest assured that this will be provided in the MAA. That is the memorandum. Now, the third point is about this memorandum of administrative arrangements. We are still drafting the MAA this will be signed by the government and Upskill Hong Kong. There is nothing to share with members at this moment because it's still being drafted, but I can promise that in the future, once it is ready, we will submit the draft to the Legislative Council for reference. And we've also given an undertaking here that the MAA will also spell out some requirements for the Upskill Hong Kong. Right, the other question is training bodies outside Hong Kong, how will they be appointed and how will you monitor the work? Chairman, this amendment bill leaves room for training to be provided outside Hong Kong. The specific details have not yet been finalized, but let me give you one example in terms of monitoring, and I'd like to reassure members that, say, if we want to conduct a training course outside Hong Kong, we may collaborate with the local training body as well as an overseas counterpart. It may involve just 1 or 2 lessons throughout the course, so it will be much easier in terms of monitoring. Mr. Zhang Pui Kong. Thank you, Chair. Well, things are difficult for certain industries in Hong Kong at the moment. It's particularly difficult for young people. The unemployment rate for these industries are particularly high. So for the ERB or for Upskill Hong Kong in the future, I hope that they will place more emphasis on helping the local workforce, especially local youth. More resources should be deployed so as to help them enhance the skills so that they have better job prospects. Now, I am still concerned about the definition of eligible employees. According to your response, for the definition of eligible employees, incoming talents under various talent admission schemes, imported workers, foreign domestic helpers are not covered at the moment, but upon amendment, these 3 groups will be included as well. Here is the reality. There are grievances among the unemployed and grassroots workers. As a council member, I appreciate their grievances. Of course, there are reasons why some people fail to secure a job, but then they are venting the spike on this policy. Now, if you include imported workers, incoming talents, and foreign domestic helpers in the new definition, then you're sending out this message that you're not helping those who are already struggling to find a job by opening up the door wider to welcome these groups. And you're taking jobs away from them. This is actually the response I get from members of the public. Of course, the government should do a better job in explaining your position to the public. We also share this responsibility. But my point is there an imminent need to amend this legislation? Amend the definition. If not, I'd say just put it on hold. We can have a further discussion in the future if need be on amending the definition, because we need to protect local workers. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Indeed, about amending the definition of eligible employees, we receive polarized views during the consultation. And I thank members for telling us what they think today, and we're going to mull over all the details including the views expressed. At the same time, we need to acknowledge the fact that this amendment is to promote development in the long term. These incoming workers will not take resources from us. On the contrary, they're going to enrich our human resources pool. In other words, for the courses run by Upskill Hong Kong, we will be able to charge course fees and receive an income. There is actually a keen demand for foreign domestic helpers to be trained so that they can take better care of the children and elderly at home. So this is the framework. We are considering the inclusion of these groups so that we can make a profit, so to speak, through the running of courses, and that there'll be more resources for local workers. But I do appreciate the concern that's expressed by the member. Is it that we are not hammering home this message? We do need to go back and give it a thought. I just want to take this opportunity to explain that there are merits. And in fact, this will not take up the resources provided by taxpayers. Instead, it's a new stream of income that will allow additional resources to go to local workers. But I think this message is not clear enough at the moment. There is a perception that we are helping to train the outsiders, so to speak. So we need to think carefully how we word it. Say foreign domestic helpers, they don't compete jobs with the local workforce anyway. We are at the moment covering two groups: local workers who are permanent residents and also non-locals. We can't have a separate category called foreign domestic helpers, and that is why we have included them in the definition this time. But in fact, it is our intention to include foreign domestic helpers because this bureau is in charge of welfare services as well. And we see a very keen demand for care for the elderly. We have 480,000 elderly, 400,000 elderly age 80 or above, and then the figure will go up to 1 million or 800,000 or even a million elderly. There will be a keen demand for foreign domestic helpers. We appreciate that we will receive criticisms after announcing the change, but then we need to think how we can explain our intention. Our primary service target is outdoor eligible employees. Now, if we don't include foreign domestic helpers in this round of amendment, then there will be no way for Upskill Hong Kong to provide training to them. Someone will have to take up this task in the future. Of course, I've heard all the views during the consultation loud and clear. So let me say this here. Now, if it's our intention to exclude them, then so be it. It's just a matter of changing the policy. However, if we consider in the longer horizon, we need to work on strategies to cope with the aging population. We need to have an extra tool, and that is the purpose of this exercise. Well, in fact, I've been very frank in telling everyone what we think, and perhaps we can go back and give it a thought, and then at the next meeting we can then decide on this matter. I see that this is a matter of major concern, and I understand where members are coming from. We fully appreciate all the concerns, and we have been frank and explain very candidly our position. So I also want to level with the public that we want to focus on the local workforce and Hong Kong permanent residents, but at the same time we need to consider ways to cope with the aging population in the future. So perhaps after the meeting we'll give it a thought again. I thank everyone for raising this point. Any follow-up? No. Next, Mr. Alex Fan. Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. Let me explain that as provided in the background brief, I in principle support the amendment bill. My first question is about eligible employees. Now, Secretary Mr. Sun just gave an explanation, and I'm more inclined to support the amendment bill as it stands now. Now, when it comes to people who are not the primary service targets, that is, those who are not Hong Kong permanent residents or their dependents settling in Hong Kong or one-way permit holders, then I'm not sure whether there is still room to include the principle of users' pay in your amendment bill, because this will be a very clear concept, so that everyone understands that the upskill Hong Kong's resources will not be spent on training them. If you are willing to pay up, then you receive training. That's all. That's the first question. Second question is about application for retraining allowance and the eligibility criteria. The administration provided a response to the legal advice's letter. Well, we can further discuss that at the clause-by-clause stage when we come to clause 4. But policy-wise, the eligibility criteria are set out in the provision. Well, my view is that the eligibility criteria should be categorically expressed in the provision. Now, of course, we trust the operation of Upskill Hong Kong. They are not going to do anything arbitrarily, but do consider making this provision more explicit. The other question is about deletion in Schedule 2 about the appointment of training bodies in Clause 4, and that if this is repealed, there will be no need for a negative vetting process. My question is this. This ordinance was enacted in 1994 or 1995. What was the thinking behind adopting negative vetting process for changes to the schedule? Because this will facilitate our discussion as to whether we should give more flexibility to the to upskill Hong Kong, and that there will be no need to go through negative vetting.
Secretary, I think Mr. Alex Fan asked some really good questions. We'll have to think about them after the meeting. We have made it quite clear in the bill, but we may include the further details in the Memorandum of Administrative Arrangements as to whether some of the details could be spelled out in the bill. We will have to think about this. I think this is a good suggestion as to what the thinking behind was when we decided to adopt a negative vetting as we formulated Schedule 2. I'll have to check the information. Next, Mr. Mun Kit. I'm also concerned about the definition of eligible employees. I'd like to raise my views. We were consulted by the Permanent Secretary, but still I think the proposal is not very convincing for me. If there is such a great demand, perhaps other training bodies or organizations can take up the role. The government should rather allocate resources on local citizens. Now, turning to the point about retraining allowance, there are many young people who are not willing to find a job. How can Upskill Hong Kong, by granting retraining allowance, attract young people to sign up for courses and upskill themselves? According to the government's previous reply, there's no concrete plans on how to offer greater incentives. So here I'd like to hear what the administration has to say. Secretary, on the definition of eligible employees, we have heard members' views. We will look into this after the meeting. Hopefully, at the next meeting, we will be able to offer clearer information or ideas to members. We understand that members have their concerns and they have expressed their views very clearly. The administration today has listened to your views and we will come up with a new idea at the next meeting. Let's see if the Deputy Secretary has anything to supplement. Chairman, if the bill is passed, Upskill Hong Kong might be able to roll out new incentives. However, we don't have any concrete plans at this stage. Like Mr. Won Kit said, we might want to attract young people to sign up for the courses. For those who would like to attend the courses now, they could already apply for retraining allowance. For those who want to sign up for more advanced courses, if they're able to show proof that they're unemployed, we would be able to grant them retraining allowance as well. I think we will stick to the same approach after the bill is passed. As to how this will be implemented, we will leave it to Upskill Hong Kong to make a decision based on the service target's needs. Mr. Augustine Wong, I have two questions. First, about eligible employees. When I first looked at the bill, I had this question in mind, that is, why non-local residents would be eligible to apply for these courses. I think the bill is written in such general manner, which gives people the impression that people who are not local residents will be able to get the retraining allowance. Well, but you have actually expressed it very clearly just now. If you could include what you have expressed in the bill, that would be clear enough. That is, you have to state explicitly that you will make very careful considerations before granting retraining allowance to non-local residents. That means you're not granting retraining allowance to any non-local residents. It is only if they meet certain special requirements that they would be able to get the allowance. The way it is written now gives people the impression that non-locals are competing with locals for such allowance or resources. So please consider my suggestion. Second, about the financial arrangement. In 2024, the ERB had a funding of $13 billion. I see that every year the ERB suffered a loss of about $10 billion. As the ERB expands its functions, it may require more resources and it may suffer greater losses in future. So do you have an estimate of how much Upskill Hong Kong will lose every year? What is the expected deficit every year? With $13 billion as an outstanding balance, I believe that Upskill Hong Kong will be able to sustain its operation in the medium to long run. Well, government's financial commitment will be crucial. So I want to know if you have an estimated figure in terms of the projected deficit of Upskill Hong Kong. Secretary, I agree that we need to make ourselves clear in the bill. As having explained, we will not spend taxpayers' money and instead, Upskill Hong Kong will actually be able to make a profit. However, we do see that members have very strong views about the definition of eligible employees. Indeed, the ERB has been serving local residents for the majority of time. So I will look into this and decide whether we will only grant the allowance to local residents. Perhaps the executive director can talk about the financial position of the ERB. We rely on levy as our major source of income, and that would depend on how many imported workers we have. Second, we rely on our investment returns. It depends on whether we are at a high interest rate or not. If the interest rate is high, we suffer less a loss. So every year, it's different. However, we try to make sure that with the supervision of the LWB as well as the board of directors, we spend our resources carefully. We want to make sure that we allocate resources in a very careful manner. If resources are not needed in certain areas, we would reduce the spending on those areas. And if we're going to move out, we will be able to save some expenses on rent. We can make sure that the expenditure is spent within the limit. In the past, HAMA helped us make investment, and now we make timed deposits, and we can come up with an estimate of how much money we get every year. In case one day we know that we can only spend within our limits, we will make sure that we do not spend extra. So we have been trying our best despite the fiscal losses. But I tell my colleagues that these are not fiscal or financial losses. It is just that we are spending resources where it is necessary. I'd like to supplement. In future, we will stick to the same approach. We will spend money where it is needed. From the face of it, we may be suffering a loss, but for the government, we are actually making an investment. And we will continue to adhere to this principle. We never expected the ERB to sustain its operation on its own. The matter is just about how much the government has to inject into its fund. We are mostly trying to take care of the grassroots workers, but of course there are other people who have their needs. So yes, we will continue to spend resources where needed. Mr. Lam Wai Kong, I declare that the organization I belong to is one of the ERB training bodies. Employees face major changes in the market, especially with AI development. So we need to enhance the training in order to help upskill them. So I support the upgrading of the ERB into Upskill Hong Kong, and I agree that we should come up with a skill-based framework. I have the following concerns. First, some other members have already mentioned this, that is, how we can make sure resources are used effectively. According to the bill, we will see an expansion in terms of service targets, and non-permanent residents may be able to get subsidized training. And also, some training bodies from outside Hong Kong may be offering courses to our employees. How can you make sure that resources are allocated effectively? How can you ensure quality? And if irregularities are detected, how will you penalize the training bodies in question. Second, I'm looking at the papers here, and according to the papers, local residents will be prioritized by Upskill Hong Kong. Can you tell us how you will implement this? For example, will you make sure that only after a certain number of local employees are served that you will offer your services to non-local residents? Can you please tell us how you will make sure that priority is going to be given to grassroots workers or local employees? Now, turning to the levy, the administration said it would impose perhaps different levies. Now the levy is currently at a flat rate for all labor importation schemes. In future, will you take into consideration the scale of the businesses? For larger businesses, will they be charged a higher levy, for example? Lastly, I believe that Upskill Hong Kong will provide more AI courses or relevant training. Currently, the LWB has already been providing such training. I want to know if the LWB will in future work with other government bureau to make sure that there won't be duplication of resources.
Secretary, I've put down 4 questions. I think that the majority concern here is the definition of eligible employees, and I have given an undertaking that at the next meeting, the government's position will be explained very clearly. Now, simply put, we serve the primary service targets. As for foreign domestic helpers, what we have in mind is for them to serve an aging society in Hong Kong. Now, for local employees, we don't seek to have any extra income from them. Rather, we want to be able to make a profit through other courses so that there will be more resources for them. Now, it's not possible to tell you today that what percentage will be given to what, because our primary service target is the local workforce. Now, we can make this change to include or exclude foreign domestic helpers. The change will come with pros and cons. In the future, there may be demands for foreign domestic helpers to be trained in order to help the elderly. This may bring tears to some people, and by then, I won't be able to say, yes, the Upskill Hong Kong will be able to do that, because if we don't make a change today, this won't happen. But I'm happy with any conclusion as long as we conduct a very detailed discussion. So I thank everyone for your views today. This discussion is really meaningful. And about trading bodies, I think we should consider 2 things. We're talking about training bodies providing training courses outside Hong Kong. We're not talking about appointing a training body outside of Hong Kong, because after all, this bill applies to Hong Kong. So most likely, our local training bodies will be collaborating with their counterparts outside of Hong Kong. At the moment, this is not possible. For example, for new energy vehicles, you cannot run a course and charge course fees outside of Hong Kong. And that is why what we have in mind is to engage a local training body, and for this training body to find a collaborating partner, most likely one in the Greater Bay Area, so as to run the courses together. This will be left with Upskill Hong Kong later. Now, as for the levy, I want to emphasize once again that there is no plan to change the format to a multi-tier one. At the moment, this is a single-tier levy, $400, but then we want to have flexibilities to cope with changes in the coming decades. If we are to change the levy structure, we'll make sure that there is transparency and impartiality. Otherwise, we'll stick to the existing approach. Now, let me ask Chairman to answer the fourth question that is about tertiary institutions. The question was whether we will talk to other organizations. The answer definitely is yes, but then we focus on career services. We constantly remind ourselves that on top of that, we may also be sector specific. For example, helping practitioners in the F&B industry to use AI. So I can't say for sure whether there is or isn't any overlapping, because when it comes to some basic knowledge on AI, there could be overlapping. But the intention is clear. We want to help the labor force, especially grassroots. Last one to speak for the first round, Mr. Webster. Well, other members already touched on the topic of eligible employees. And I think I've heard a very good explanation. We're not just renaming ERB. We are helping people to enhance the skills. And as the Secretary put it very nicely, this is an investment. Now, if we consider the financial aspect, if you run a course with fees charged at above the cost recovery level, then of course you'll be able to reap extra income to provide subsidies to other areas. But then there is also a clear message that we should not do that, because if we're not able to address the local issues, we should not go further at this moment. But from the financial perspective, when we consider this an investment, then this is something we should do. So I hope that the administration can tell us exactly what the position is. If this is your position to enhance the level of skills across the workforce, then you should extend the service scope. Don't carve anything out. Otherwise, it gives a perception that you are ignoring existing issues while trying to brace others. I don't think there is a clear position here. As for training outside Hong Kong, I'll give you a scenario. Say, if I want to train staff about low altitude economy, and that in practice it is not possible to do so in Hong Kong, then you may need to go to the Greater Bay Area. But in this process, how do you make sure that our local employees' skills will be enhanced with proper monitoring of the training efforts, and that in the end, Hong Kong will receive the benefits? Right, I think I've explained very clearly, but then I'm not going to repeat what I've said. I will consider very carefully before giving a reply. I understand that there are lots of questions on the same area, so I thank Mr. Webster. Now, about training bodies, I want to reassure members again. If we're talking about training outside Hong Kong, I think the local training body should be involved, because the bill applies to Hong Kong. We need to have the involvement of a local training body in order to be able to monitor the body. If it's not registered in Hong Kong, then there is no monitoring to speak of. That is why when we talk about training outside Hong Kong, we're not talking about appointing a training body outside Hong Kong. These are two different matters. Let me make it clear that candidates can receive training outside Hong Kong, but then it should be organized by a local training body so that we have proper monitoring. Second round, 4 minutes, Mr. Tommy Chung. I'm happy to learn that the administration will provide a reply after carefully mulling over the issue. But then I hope that next time you can explain your logic to us. When it comes to foreign domestic helpers and imported workers, I think the prerequisite is that they should possess the necessary skills before they are allowed to be imported and work here. So we need to think carefully whether we should help enhance the skills. And you also explain that no subsidized service will be given to this group. Course fees will be charged to recover costs. Now, of course, our goal isn't to make money. Our goal is to enhance the skills of the local workforce. I appreciate the original intention. But then, in reality, on average, how long will a foreign domestic helper stay and work in Hong Kong? After helping them enhance their skills, will they leave upon the termination of a 2-year contract? Because in my days, my foreign domestic helper worked for my family for over a decade. But according to recent observations, many foreign domestic helpers would leave right after the end of a 2-year contract. So is it really worthwhile to include them in the legislative amendment? I understand the administration will consider this very carefully. The other point is about the charging of fees. Will imported workers and foreign domestic helpers be willing to fork out money and extra resources and time to take up these courses? Now, the administration said that they will consider whether to make this change or not. But then I think that, say, foreign domestic helpers and imported workers may be excluded. But for incoming talents under the talent admission schemes, they should be included, such as those coming in under TAC-TES and also ASTMP, because these talents could become Hong Kong permanent residents in the future. They could be the next generation and major support for our labor force. And enhancing their skills could help them adapt and take forward long-term development in Hong Kong. Now, for foreign domestic helpers, so on and so forth, I think first aid courses are currently available in the market, and that should be sufficient for them to take at their own cost. So please rationalize the logic. The other point is about the MAA, about according priority to primary service targets and eligibility for retraining allowances, KPIs, etc. These details will be included in the MAA to be signed between the government and Upskill Hong Kong. Now, the MAA definitely will involve a lot of details. So I wonder if the administration can give us a draft of the MAA for either scrutiny or reference before the bill resumes its second or third reading. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Zhong. Mr. Zhong has explained his thinking very clearly to me, and I beg to differ. Let me explain my position. Either we retain the original eligibility criteria and make no change. And let me explain that. Now, for incoming talents, before they get permanent residencies, they need to go through 3 hurdles. After they come to Hong Kong on a visa, they need to have the visa renewed for 2 or 3 times. And there are requirements. If they're unable to get a job, for example, they'll have to leave, such as the Top Talent Pass scheme. Now, if we are selective and we cherry pick the incoming talents but exclude the foreign domestic helpers and imported workers, then likewise, the incoming talents may only stay here for 2 or 3 years. For one-way permit holders, they come here for family reunion and definitely they form part of our workforce in the future. So they'll be included. As for incoming talents, before they get the permanent residency based on the 7-year residence rule, then they are not staying here for good, and they should just wait until they meet the eligibility criteria. They need to go through the 3 hurdles. Now, for foreign domestic helpers, we're actually talking about employers paying up to support the foreign domestic helpers in receiving training. There are some helpers leaving after a short period of time, then you can choose not to support them financially. But then, say if you have a 70-year-old at home, and if you have a very good helper at home who has worked for 10 years at the age of 30, then say the 70-year-old may become 80-year-old with dementia in 10 years' time, and that the helper may by then be 40 years of age without any skills on taking care of the demented. And that is why training is needed. Some employers may try to sign the helper up for certain courses in the market, but they're not sure whether these courses are good. So Upskill Hong Kong will drop a skill-based framework, and they can charge course fees and make money. So in this case, the foreign domestic helper originally could take care of the elderly at home, but as the elderly continues to age, in 10 years' time, in their 80s, 90s, there may be new skills needed. The foreign domestic helper by then may not have these skills, and yet for the senile elder, such as the experience I have, the elderly may only recognize that helper and nobody else. And that is the thinking behind our design. Now, when circumstances permit, Upskill Hong Kong may run this course under the cost recovery principle. We're trying to do a good deed, but then it has become more complicated. We have received diverse views, and I think that we've heard members' views loud and clear today. So after the meeting, we'll go back and rethink, and then we'll consider the mainstream views. If it's the mainstream that no change should be made, then so be it. If the mainstream view is that this change should be made, then we're not going to drop the third option. It's either no change or change on eligibility criteria of employees. We will consider comprehensively. There are members who are here. They are not members of the Bills Committee, and yet they really want to express their views. And I appreciate that. We want to tap the collective wisdom and make the best decision. But please don't come up with the third option. It's either A or B. The third option won't do. Just tell us A or B, and we'll go back and mull over and discuss with Chairman before making a decision. I think this has been a very meaningful discussion for us to better gauge your views and the views of the public. This will be very helpful for us.
I suggest that members do not repeat their questions. Mr. Chen Xiuhong, it's hard for us to avoid repeating the same questions if we all have concerns about the same issue, but let's explore the same topic from a different perspective. I appreciate the attitude of the Secretary because he is very willing to listen to our views, and he promised that we could exchange our ideas further through various channels and platforms outside this meeting. I look forward to hearing the Secretary's views at the next meeting. The second point that I'd like to make is about the Secretary's explanation on the definition of eligible employees for non-Hong Kong permanent residents, the Secretary stressed that the government will not spend taxpayers' monies on non-local residents, and rather the government might be able to make profit out of non-local residents. But I'm afraid that this may not actually work. Perhaps we could have a more detailed discussion on this at the next meeting. I don't think this would work because this would involve administrative costs on the side of Upscale Hong Kong. With the cost of providing courses as well as the administrative fees, perhaps it would be easier for the consumers to look for courses from other service providers or organizations. Also, according to the bill, there's no mention that Upskill Hong Kong will outsource its services to contractors. For example, the Secretary said there is a great demand for training courses for foreign domestic helpers. Why is that? This is because these courses are offered for free. If fee-charging courses are to be provided by Upskill Hong Kong, you might as well ask consumers or potential trainees to look for courses that are suitable for them, that are offered by other training bodies or organizations. However, the government could commission Upskill Hong Kong to come up with a white list, and consumers or employers, they could refer to the white list drawn up by Upskill Hong Kong to look for the right training services or courses for their domestic helpers. Now, I'd like to turn to the issue about training bodies outside Hong Kong. According to the Secretary, a recognized or accredited local body would select a training body outside Hong Kong to provide relevant courses. However, if you are to provide courses relevant to low-altitude economy, you have to tread very carefully. This is because there are no authorities, both in Hong Kong or in the mainland, that would grant licenses to trainees. So for local residents who have completed courses outside of Hong Kong, they will not be able to obtain licenses. And you mentioned there's an outstanding balance of $13 billion of the ERF. If Upskill Hong Kong suffers losses in the coming 10 years, you may use up the fund in just a few years' time. So for the coming few years, with the expansion of the functions as well as the service targets, I'm curious how Upskill Hong Kong will be able to manage financially. Lastly, I support the idea that Upskill Hong Kong should spend whenever it is needed. However, does that mean you will spend as many resources as possible, how are you going to gauge the effectiveness of your services? You may provide thousands of places or thousands of courses every year, but how can you make sure that they will be value for money? I'm sorry, Chairman, I spent quite a long time on raising these questions. I first extend this meeting by 15 minutes to 4:45 p.m. Secretary, as mentioned, we will consult members outside this meeting. We have two proposals. First, we keep the existing eligibility criteria. Second proposal would be to expand the definition. We do not intend to come up with a third proposal. We will definitely go by the mainstream views. We wanted to serve employers, but never mind, we will listen to members' views. Second, we understand that for training bodies that are to provide courses relevant to low-altitude economy, they'll have to meet certain requirements. But if laws do not allow that, well, trainees will have to attend the courses in Hong Kong. As to whether we should spend money where it is needed, well, please don't worry about the outstanding balance of $13 billion. Well, members have been asking us to pay close attention to our fiscal position. Well, we're going to upgrade the ERB, and we think that we will have to support local employees, especially with the rapid development of AI technologies. We will have to spend resources on upskilling our employees. If we cannot keep up with the change, if we cannot keep up with the technological development, it will be, at the end of the day, local employees that are going to suffer. So this is what we mean by spending resources where needed. In the medium term, we will have enough resources and money. As to how much we have to spend every year, we'll have to look at the accounts drawn up by Upskill Hong Kong in the future. In the long run, the government will have to inject funds to Upskill Hong Kong, and to the government, it is a kind of investment. Well, perhaps we can have further discussion with Mr. Chen on how we can make sure that our services are cost-effective. Just now, Mr. Chen said if we are to provide courses to foreign domestic helpers, we wouldn't be able to recover costs. Well, I kind of agree. However, we are already offering courses to locals. Since we have already developed these courses, it will not cost us extra if we are to roll out these courses to non-locals. But we will look into this. Mr. Peter Xu, the ERB will be renamed as Upskill Hong Kong, and I'm all for this. We have to move with the times. Back in the 60s and 70s, it was hard for people to be admitted to post-secondary institutions. And therefore, the government wanted to upskill factory workers so that they could have learning opportunities and they could transform themselves. So I agree that we should upgrade the ERB. Now I have a couple of questions. Are the courses under the ERB taught by your teachers, or have you been collaborating with various training bodies in the market? If you have been collaborating with different training bodies, I understand that you refer trainees or students to these training bodies. I understand that you've been granting subsidies to these training bodies. In future, of course, you will no longer offer subsidies to these training bodies. So are you going to collaborate with these training bodies in a similar manner in future?
Well, the executive director can explain in a moment, but let me explain that the ERB or Upskill Hong Kong will not organize its own courses. It's a central platform. We're not competing with other stakeholders. Actually, we support the market players because we want the local employees to be able to enjoy the benefit. In fact, we have two major training bodies working with us. We have one from the Hong Kong Kowloon Workers Federation, right? In that case, I get it, Secretary. So some training bodies will be responsible for running courses, and these training bodies will need to make a profit, right? Say they may charge a student $8,000 a year, and that you also provide subsidies. Is it that in the future they will not get any subsidy, or they may need to get a portion, the profit with you? In fact, there hasn't been any change at all. The ERB can explain in a moment. There is no change about the financial arrangement and cost recovery. If we agree that foreign domestic helpers should be included, then the employers of foreign domestic helpers will be paying for the course fees, and there is no change about the financial side of things. Say, we also talked about some 800 million, $1 billion, then perhaps we should introduce fees to be charged at the cost recovery level. Then we won't be able to incur any loss. But we're talking about grassroots jobs and grassroots workers, security guards, cleaners, those workers at the airport. They're already struggling. We want to help them equip skills. Right, I don't need a further explanation from the executive director. Right, if you go by the old system, then that means for local workers, they will continue to receive service in a subsidized manner. Every year, we need to give a payout of 800 million to $1 billion, and now with foreign domestic helpers included, the employers will need to pay for the courses, and that way, you may generate income to a certain extent. So you need to think very carefully to make things sustainable. I'd like to speak on another point. I agree with the Secretary when it comes to the inclusion of foreign domestic helpers. To be honest, do local workers prefer these jobs of taking care of elderly? The answer is, of course, no, because otherwise we would not have imported 400,000 foreign domestic helpers. Our elderly population continues to age. And I'm not even talking about those suffering from dementia. We do need helpers with special skills to prepare their meals. There may be special needs. So we should provide an extra option so that these helpers will be equipped with more professional skills. So I support you, Secretary. I'll give the floor to Mr. Ng to speak on grassroots workers. In fact, there are two categories of courses. One is for the unemployed and is placement tied. We want to hone their skills to make it easier for them to find another job that suit their needs instead of just taking up casual jobs. So we're talking about some 80% of courses in this category. There is also another category that is part-time courses for in-service practitioners. They need to pay for the courses. Say if you earn $15,000 or less a month, we will exempt the fees. For the other categories, say if you earn between $15,000 and $23,500, then you will need to pay the course fee up to a point. And if you earn more than $23,500 a month, then we need to recover the full cost. You have to pay the full fee. Say for the construction industry, if a worker works for more than 20 days, then they earn much more than $23,500. So we have this model. We provide partial subsidy for lower income earners and zero subsidy for high income earners. And on the point of foreign domestic helpers, like the Secretary said, they are tasked to take care of our elderly, and according to the feedback received, some carers in their 40s and 50s would like to rejoin the workforce, but they can't find anyone to look after their elderly family members. And as a result, they can't even take up a part-time job. If we're able to train foreign domestic helpers, I think this can help unleash the potential of the workforce.
主席，咁我就唔特。
Second round, Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Well, I think I am not going to dwell on eligible employees because we explained the principle very clearly, even at the panel meeting in February. Now, this amendment bill is about renaming ERB to Upskill Hong Kong for imported workers under the supplementary labor scheme. In the first place, these should be skilled workers. As for foreign domestic helpers, you say you go back and think about it. My question is on retraining allowance and other forms of financial incentives. Under the DRB ordinance, there is a clear provision for retraining allowances to be discharged from $4,000 to $5,800 to $8,000. Any further change will be subject to legislative approval. Now, I'm not against other forms of financial assistance, but who should do the gatekeeping? And how does it correlate with the retraining allowance? Would it render the provision on retraining allowance futile? Because for the placement-tied courses and those who are unemployed will receive $8,000 of allowance. Now, let's say if there are other forms of financial assistance and that on top of the retraining allowance they get $3,000 more, then would it render the original provision useless? Of course, we welcome more financial assistance for grassroots workers, but I want to make sure that I understand the correlation between the modes of financial assistance and the original retraining allowance. Currently, there are retraining courses for in-service practitioners, and these workers get a retraining allowance. Upon the amendment of the ordinance, there will be room for Upskill Hong Kong to devise other forms of financial assistance. As explained, we have not finalize the details at this stage. But let me explain that it is not something in addition to retraining allowances. On the contrary, if there is a need to provide other subsidies, reimbursements, or similar financial assistance on top of retraining allowance for the purpose of promoting economic development in Hong Kong, then this could be considered. For example, some young people may have education attainment of university level, and that they may take up courses to learn new skills, and that they will be able to receive financial assistance because of the expanded scope in the amendment bill. As for details, I think that this will be decided by Upskill Hong Kong in the future. The meeting will be further extended by 15 minutes up to 5 o'clock. Mr. Perry Yeo is your first round. Would you like to ask questions? I'm not a member of the Bills Committee, but I am concerned about the renaming of ERB and this bill in general, as well as changes in the statutory functions and powers. Even when I was a district councillor, I had been concerned about the development of the ERB. I always feel that resources are not optimally used. It seems that resources should be deployed to help, say, workers change the field, and I'm very concerned about this bill. I think in general, this reform is necessary to help sectors tackle the challenges so that with upgrading and transformation, we can help employees transform as well. So I'd like to join hands with the government in and show my support for this bill so as to help various sectors. I don't think I need an answer. It's just my comment. I don't need another round. Third round, Mr. Chan Siu Hong. Please be succinct. I'll be brief about enhancing research capability. I fully support the establishment of, say, a research department to better gauge the trend of demand for future skills. But then, there are institutions conducting research in other in particular sectors, and how do you work with these institutions? For example, the Construction Industry Council is an organization I'm familiar with, and they conduct manpower projections once every 4 years, and it's a very important reference for even the Development Bureau. The Transport and Logistics Bureau also conducts regular research on manpower demands for the transportation sector. For the research department of Upskill Hong Kong, how will they make use of existing research data to assess the trend of demand for skills in the future so as to avoid duplication of research efforts? Secretary, thank you. Mr. Chan, I think this is a very good question. I will invite the director to speak on that. But I think that this is a common topic, manpower projection. As you can see, the Bureau has its own research as well. Now, like Mr. Chan Siu Hong said, the CIC is the authority for construction industry. If it has a manpower projection study, then we are not going to do our own research, and the same applies for the health services sector. We're going to use the data available. As for other sectors, there may not be a clear picture. There may not be as detailed a manpower projection as one conducted by the CIC, and this is something we need to do. Well, like the CIC, it has such a systematic approach to manpower projections. So we don't need to do it on our own, but for other sectors, we have to do a manpower projection in order to get the full picture. Director, Secretary has just explained our work in the future. We're not going to conduct research where data are already available for a particular sector. Instead, we will work with our collaborating partners and delineate responsibilities. Anything else? Policy-wise, I think we have raised a lot of good questions. We should wait for the administration to provide written response before we further our discussion. It is an important one. Date of the next meeting. Members will be informed by the Secretariat. AOB, nothing on the AOB. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.